I'm a frequent visitor of this subreddit, and I decided to share my story of something that happened to me years ago. Please excuse my English, as English is not my first language. Several years ago, I was about 19, female, and studying in college. During exam period, I would always go to the public library in the city center to study. They would have special places for the students to study. This particular day, I had went there with a classmate. It was a weekday, and I finished studying at about 2 p.m. I asked my classmate if she would mind if I left. She said no, so I packed up my stuff and left the library. As I walked out of the library, I walked straight into the city center. As I left, I felt something brush up against me. Considering that I had just walked out of a quiet library and into the crowded street, I brushed it off. I proceeded to walk through the center to get to my bus stop. After 5 minutes of walking, I couldn't seem to shake the feeling that something was too close to me. So I grabbed my phone, held it up, and looked in the screen to see if there was someone behind me. And that's when I saw this man, about 40, walking behind me with his eyes set on me. I felt uncomfortable because he was giving me weird vibes. He just looked off. He was walking with a limp while staring right at me. He was wearing a scarf with a suit jacket, really old track pants, and old gym shoes. I didn't think he was homeless or a junkie. He was just weird. But, to be safe, I put my phone in my bag and put the bag over my shoulder away from him. That's when he walked up to me and started walking next to me. At this point, I'd been walking about 10 minutes through busy streets. He kept his eyes on me and was walking so close to me, as if me and him were walking together. Once I almost made it to the bus stop, I saw my bus drive off. I didn't want to wait for another bus at the bus stop and have this man wait with me or know which bus I'm taking. So I decided to continue walking to the central station, which is about 10 minutes away. As I crossed the street, I noticed the man kept walking and didn't cross the street. I felt relieved and pulled out my phone to text my mom that some weirdo had just been following me for about 15 minutes at that point. Not even a minute later, this man comes running out of an alleyway right in front of me. I almost tripped when I saw him, and he kept walking in front of me. Every 10 seconds, literally, I counted, he would abruptly turn his head back to look at me. I had even made a small Snapchat video of it. At this point, I was so nervous, but I was almost at the central station, so I kept going. That's when he stopped, turned around, and started talking to me.
I saw you at the library,
He said. I didn't respond.
We were together at the library.
He repeated. Again, I ignored him. He didn't get the hint and kept talking.
Hey, where are you going? Are you going to the central station? I'm going there. I'm taking X bus. Which bus are you taking?
At that point, I had enough. There were people walking by and no one said anything, so I just ran straight to the central station and got on my bus. I sat behind the bus driver just in case this creep decided to run after me. I saw him looking around before getting on his bus. Once I was on the bus, I finally had a moment to think about what happened, and I realized that this man had been sitting there at the library watching me for hours and watching me leave to go after me. I remember feeling uneasy all the time, but I ignored the feeling, thinking that it was just nerves before the exams that were coming up. This experience really made me uncomfortable because I had been coming to this library to study for years. Even in high school, I would study there till 9 p.m. and leave by myself in the dark. I can only imagine what would have happened if I had met him then. So, psycho library stalker, let's not meet again. I'm a female 21. At the time of this event, I was about 16 to 17, and I was preparing for a camping trip. I had to load up my car, so I was cleaning it out. I was left home alone while my dad and brother were on a trip out of town, our older sister being a town over. I never really minded being alone. It was nice, honestly. This experience definitely left me feeling otherwise. To this day, I cannot comfortably be left alone in that house for long periods of time. Prior to this, I would have liked to think that I was a vigilant person. Definitely hypervigilant now. Not necessarily a bad thing. Anyways, I was cleaning out my car, enjoying my day, and excited for the camping trip. I was finishing up my car. My windows were down, so I hopped in and started the ignition to roll them up. As I'm doing so, I look in my rearview mirror and notice an older man standing at the end of my driveway. Instantly, my stomach dropped. I remember thinking, how fucking long has he been there? It was obvious I was home alone. Typically, there were 3 cars plus an Airstream in the driveway. Now stood just me and my silver Honda Accord, alone. He just stood there, smiling kind of. I wasn't sure what to do really. He was just looking. I hopped out of my car and just stared back at him, kind of giving him a look of like, "Are you lost? Can I help you? Fuck off," type of look. He didn't respond. Again, just stood there. So I hurried into the house. I stood by the door and locked my car, making sure to have the alarm go off a couple of times. While doing so, I was staring at him, trying to make note of his appearance. I had never seen him in my neighborhood. He definitely looked disheveled and out of place. Maybe he wandered from the retirement home a few blocks over, but this was my home, the home I'd grown up in all my life. I felt unnerved by this man's demeanor. I live in a nice neighborhood. I never thought something like this would happen to me. Again, I actively try to be vigilant and aware of what's going on around me, but this just shows that you could be doing everything right and this still could happen to you. After getting into the house, I began calling practically everyone I knew, mainly family, especially ones close by, to come by the house and just ease my mind. No one was answering. I grew panicked as I was trying to decide what the hell to do. I watched him pick up the newspaper by his feet and head towards my front door. I shit a brick and hurried into my brother's room to spy from his window, still trying to contact someone. He began knocking, then banging, and ringing the bell. I mean, he watched me go in. He knew I was there alone. My dad's house is practically falling apart. If he wanted to, he very easily could have gotten in somehow, especially if he managed to get into the backyard and try to enter from there. I thought if I didn't answer, he'd just fucking give up. I was unfortunately wrong. He proceeded back down the driveway to my car, peering in each window, circling it. Then he made his way towards the sides of my house, looking into the windows, heading towards the back gate. In retrospect, definitely should have called the cops. I just didn't want to believe that it had to escalate that far, but I definitely felt unsafe and my life threatened and terrified to the point of not moving. I sprinted into the back door to make sure it was locked, thinking I was literally fucked. Then, as if the gates to heaven parted, heard my dogs going crazy. Suddenly, I had an aha moment. Duh, my dogs. A German Shepherd and a German Pointer mix. They were barking up a storm, as I imagined the guy was aiming to get through the back. With their presence, he hurried back out front. He again started banging on my door. I had gotten a hold of my grandpa. He was heading over as quick as he could. I just had to wait it out, I thought. But how the fuck do I get him to leave? It clicked, and I called my dogs in. I whispered, "Who's here?" And they went absolutely ballistic, barking mad at this unknown man at our doorsteps. So much so, he left. My grandpa came, searched, saw no one. We even drove around looking for the man I had seen, and left empty-handed. I had been through so much, but just thinking about how vulnerable and almost naive I was in that moment will forever haunt me. Sadly, as a young woman, I am bound to end up in another uncomfortable and threatening position, and that sucks. But I won't be fucked with or go down gently, nor will my dogs. Who knows what could have happened without them? I'm thankful for my intuition, true crime brain, and of course my dogs for saving the day. Moral of the story: trust your intuition. This just happened about 15 minutes ago and was one of the weirdest encounters I've ever had. My family and I, a 22-year-old female, were sitting in our living room watching TV after dinner. All of a sudden, there's an unexpected knock at the front door. I go to open it, and there are 3 young teens, sophomores in high school, that I don't know. They tell me that a few guys are following them, and they needed to look like they knew someone. I told them immediately to come inside to evade the people following them. The teens told me that it was 3 younger boys, probably about 8th grade, that had been following them as they walked about a mile from a gas station nearby to my neighborhood. I went outside to try to see if I saw the boys, and sure enough, they were just down the street. When I stepped outside, they yelled, "Lacey, is that you?" I didn't answer, but went inside and asked if one of the girls seeking refuge were named Lacey. None were. My dad then went outside to tell the boys to move along, and they got super mouthy and rude. Eventually, they went up the street and out of sight. However, they came back down a few minutes later. So I opened the door and yelled for them to leave, but they argued with me and wouldn't go anywhere. My dad went back outside, and a neighbor heard the yelling and came to see what was happening. With the threat of 2 grown men, the boys finally left, not without some lip though. I then drove the 3 teens back to one of their houses so they could evade the boys and get home safely. Something was really weird about the interactions with the young boys. I don't know what they were looking to do, or if they were just looking for trouble, but something did not sit right with me. I'm just glad the 3 teens felt my house was a safe place to go.